I've just got one more question, and it's really putting the kind of the rubber to the road of our context here. Because we hear these stories and we just go, yes, we want that to happen here. We want to see our churches filled here with young people. We've got so many gifted people here at Christchurch, who Guy and I personally would love to see ordained, but our process here is slow and it's difficult. But one of the things that really warmed our hearts happened at the Leadership Conference just 2 years ago, when Nicky Gumbel interviewed our Archbishop Thabo Makgoba. And a lot of us got very excited about that because that was a new thing for us, a new partnership that's developing. And as you said, we need the blessing of our bishop, not just our bishop, but our archbishop. Is there anything that you can speak to about that for us, just to encourage us in prayer, because nothing can happen without prayer, and in just fostering good relationships with our diocese and with the Anglican powers that be in this nation?
Well, I just think that's your answer. I mean, can I say it's little steps? You know, I would like to be going much faster than we're going. I think my team know I'm quite impatient because I'm like, come on, we've only got one life. But actually, I think honouring your bishops, praying for your bishops, it's a tough job being a bishop, let alone I don't know what it's like being an archbishop. And, you know, they get all the tough stuff on their desk to deal with, all the difficult pastoral issues, all the discouragements. And I think if you can be a people who encourage them, that tell them about your Alpha courses, tell them about the amazing things happening at U-Turn and the men coming off drugs and into work-ready programs, tell them about what's happening with young people, encourage them and pray for them. And what we found is, you know, our battle isn't against flesh and blood. It's not against people. It's against powers and principalities. And, you know, we've planted some amazing churches and we've had God-given stories and divine appointments and miracles happen. But, you know, every single one of those has been contested. Every single one has nearly fallen through. There's been some disaster along the way when everybody's nearly given up. And it's been like, I always say to the church planters when they start our course, buckle up, it is a roller coaster ride. And they all laugh thinking, oh yes, and then quarter of the way through the course they're like, this really is a roller coaster, isn't it? And it's only through prayer, keeping close to God, worship, and, you know, I'd say pray for your bishop, pray for your diocese, pray that God opens ways, you know, pray that he brings down mountains and removes blockages and, you know, gives your bishops dreams. They're amazing.
And
amazing
I mean,
people.
there is a real principle. Again, it's slightly against our culture at the moment, but God does work through authority, and it's really important that we honour our authority and honour our bishops, and that's why we will never go anywhere if we're not invited by the bishops. But also, you know, that's why prayer is so important. God, you know, it says in Proverbs, He holds the hearts of kings in His hands. He directs their ways like watercourse, and God will lead His bishops where He wants to lead them. And I think you do your bit and let God do His bit. That's how it works. You work out what God's calling you to and go for it with all your heart and soul, and God promises that He'll provide, and maybe in ways that you don't imagine. And I just add this as well. This vision for renewal is not a 5-year plan. Right? This is a vision for our lifetime. And actually, the fruits of change are sometimes only possible to see over the course of decades, even 100 years. Our vision through some of the work we're doing is a 100-year vision, I say to our team, because God, we believe, is doing things now about the foundations, which others can build on in time. And it comes a tipping point. If you look back in culture in Britain in the late 18th century, it was a very, very dissolute time, and the church was on its knees in a bad way, not a good way. And but God came into that moment through a movement, through people like John Wesley and Whitfield and others, and hearts were strangely warmed. In Asbury right now, there's a little movement where hearts are being strangely warmed. We were in church in London last week. I don't know where this is going. And just there was in different churches, no one speaking to each other. The Spirit of God came in a way. Hearts were warmed and worship went on for hours into the evening. Listen, God turns up sometimes unexpectedly, and when he does, can I tell you, everything changes. We're dealing with a different environment and matrix, and so that happened. And then in the generation that came after Wesley, they built on that, and they started to build on the ruins, and they brought in all these changes to our social law. And do you know what? Within 100 years, we'd gone from a dissolute Georgian society to an overly moralistic, high Victorian culture. The point was they looked nothing like each other. Can I tell you, South African culture is going to look nothing like it does now in 100 years' time. The only question is, what is it going to look like? You don't need all the answers on the plate right now. You don't need everything ticked. You need to listen to God's voice, be stirred by his heart, choose to give up everything else to pursue him, because there's no greater goal in all of life. There is nothing better that you can be a part of. And I think if we do that, then we'll leave the bishops and the decision makers and the funds and everything else in God's hand, that he'll guide them. But God has not given up on his church, and Jesus said this: I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And we are not, by the grace of God, going to let the decline of the church, which has been going for centuries, collapse in our time. We can't do anything about it, but I think God is stirring our heart to say he's got a future for the church. He's got a future for the church in South Africa. And so we've got to take faith and be bold and go for it, be winsome. And over time, we've even seen in our own country, just things start to shift and change, and the opportunities emerge.
Sure, thank you so much. A lot of this conversation has just stirred faith for me again, and has given me the ability to see beyond where we currently are and to begin to dream of what that could look like here and now. So thank you. I once read a book where the author was saying that this person that they were writing about, whenever you are in their presence, you know that your faith is being stirred. And I feel like whenever I've been in conversation with the two of you, my faith has been stirred. And so I'd love for you to lead us in prayer and worship tonight, and into praying for one another. And so we've gone slightly over time, but that's okay. There's no electricity, so there's nothing to do at home anyway. But we'd love to spend some time praying and worshiping, and I'm going to hand over to Tom and Sarah to lead us with the worship team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience and for listening.